Great! Here's a 1,000-word story based on your outline titled asterisk, asterisk, the hiring puzzle. Asterisk, asterisk, I've woven in the details you mentioned, company intro, high standards, and the initial candidate struggle while giving it a natural flow and depth. Asterisk, asterisk, the hiring puzzle, asterisk, asterisk, Trivanta Solutions wasn't just any company, was the company. A tech consulting powerhouse nestled in the heart of Silicon Valley. Known for revolutionizing industries with data-driven innovation and seamless digital transformation, clients lined up months in advance, waiting for Trivanta's elite teams to dissect and rebuild their outdated systems. But with great success came the constant need for top-tier talent, and lately, filling one particular role had become an unsolvable puzzle. The position in question? Lead systems architect for their upcoming AI division, a department poised to redefine how businesses leveraged automation, ethics, and human behavior in artificial intelligence. It was a job that demanded not just expertise in neural networks or years of Python experience, but someone with vision, intuition, and the ability to foresee complications in code before a line was ever written. The hiring panel, headed by Director Alina Reyes, was growing frustrated. For weeks, they had combed through portfolios that gleamed with certifications, degrees from MIT and Stanford, and impressive lists of achievements. Some had even worked on landmark projects for Fortune 500 companies. On paper, these candidates were flawless, but that was the problem. They were only flawless on paper. During the interviews, something essential was always missing. A few lacked originality. Others fumbled when challenged with hypothetical scenarios that required off-script thinking. And some, though technically brilliant, had all the warmth and spontaneity of a chatbot. I need someone who can asterisk build the future, not just debug the present, Alina remarked after one particularly flat interview. We're hiring a mind, not just a resume, her team understood. They were building something that didn't exist yet. The ideal candidate wouldn't be a cog in the machine, they'd help invent the machine itself. Out of desperation, they widened the criteria. No longer was a master's degree a strict requirement. They began looking for signs of creativity, adaptability, and the elusive spark that Alina kept referring to. They even invited a behavioral psychologist to sit in on the final round of interviews, hoping to decode what traditional metrics failed to reveal. The applicant pool expanded, now including people from unconventional backgrounds, a robotics engineer who moonlighted as a jazz musician, systems analyst who spent a year meditating in Bhutan, even a cybersecurity expert who wrote poetry in binary. Interesting, yes, but none quite fit. Then, on a gray Monday morning, an application landed in their inbox that raised eyebrows. Ava Lynn. Her resume was oddly minimalist, no flashy header, no list of awards, just a quiet outline of her experience, mostly freelance consulting, some startup work, and a few open-source contributions. But what stood out was a link to a personal project, Neuraloop, an AI system she had built to help children with learning disabilities adapt lessons in real time. Alina clicked the link. The demo video began to play a child with reading a story, and the system gently adjusted the language, voice tone, and visuals based on the child's engagement level. It wasn't just smart, it was empathetic. Get her in, Alina said. The team agreed, though cautiously. Freelancers often lacked team-oriented skills, and many startups had unstructured environments. But Ava's work hinted at a deeper intelligence. When Ava entered the interview room 2 days later, virtually, from a small apartment filled with books and circuit boards, she didn't try to impress. She listened. She asked precise questions. And when given a complex system design challenge, she didn't answer right away. She paused, then smiled and said, "May I challenge the premise?" No one had done that before. She explained how the problem could be reframed more effectively if the AI system were taught not just logic, but emotional thresholds, how people feel when interacting with intelligent systems, and how that should inform decision-making layers by the end of the interview. The psychologist scribbled something in his notebook and passed it to Alina. It said, "She's the one." Still, Alina wanted to be sure. "You don't have the traditional background," she said during the follow-up. "Why do you think you're the right person for this job?" Ava didn't hesitate. "Because I think, like the systems we're trying to build. I learn fast. I adapt. And I know that logic alone doesn't solve human problems." That night, Alina sat alone in the conference room, going over the feedback forms. All positive, all in favor. She thought about every other candidate. Brilliant. Minds talented programmers, but Ava had something else. She made the problem hers, not just something to solve, but something to care about. And that spark, that genuine sense of ownership and imagination, had been missing all along. Trivanta had finally found their missing piece, not someone who checked every traditional box, but someone who saw the puzzle differently altogether. The next morning, the offer letter went out. Ava Lynn would lead the AI division not just as a systems architect, but as the architect of a new kind of thinking. And Alina, finally, could breathe again. Let me know if you want a continuation. A version in a different tone, or to include more drama, emotion, or twist at the end. Absolutely. Here's a 1,000-word story titled "The Unlikely Candidate," based on your outline. It introduces the unconventional applicant, their unique strengths, and the ripple effect of a bold hiring decision by the CEO. The unlikely candidate Trivanta Solutions had always prided itself on its unmatched reputation for excellence, with clients like Tesla, NASA, and leading biotech firms. The company was known for hiring only the best, often top 1% of the top 1%. Resumes from Ivy League schools and Fortune 100 companies were the norm. So when the final round of interviews for the AI division's lead integration analyst included someone with no degree, no formal certifications, and no corporate experience, it sparked more than a few raised eyebrows. Her name was Juno Ellis. She was 29, self-taught, and according to her resume, had never worked a day in a structured office environment. Instead, she'd spent most of her 20s traveling, working odd jobs, waitressing, sailing with environmental research teams, even volunteering at remote schools in Indonesia. Her only listed experience in AI, personal GitHub project called Fractal Mind, a decentralized pseudo-mind that adjusted itself based on emotional input rather than raw data to most of the hiring committee. She looked like a clear no, but the CEO, Marcus Hale, head, insisted she be given a slot. "This position isn't just about coding," he had said during a board meeting. "It's about seeing what no one else sees." He'd found Juno through a random TEDx talk clip titled "Teaching Machines to Listen with Emotion." Where she had spoken about her frustration with traditional AI's failure to understand context and human nuance. Her explanations were rough around the edges, but her ideas were radical fresh. She spoke about how machines could learn like children through pattern, mistake, and feeling, not just logic. The team agreed to humor Marcus. They assumed the interview would make it clear she was out of her depth. But when Juno arrived, late, in a frayed hoodie, her laptop held together by tape, no one was prepared for what followed. She didn't pitch herself like the other candidates had. She didn't list achievements. Instead, she started with a question. What's the one thing every AI system today is missing? The panel exchanged glances, unsure how to answer. Curiosity, Juno said. Every system is built to optimize, not to explore. That's why they plateau. That's why they misread people. Curiosity drives understanding. We've built calculators, not thinkers. Then she pulled up a demo of Fractal Mind. It wasn't flashy, it wasn't polished. But it reacted to her pausing when she paused, speeding up when she became animated. It responded not just to commands, but to emotion, a machine that actually adapted its interface. Based on human tone and attention span. The room was quiet. Someone from HR finally asked, "Why haven't you worked at a company before?" Juno shrugged. "No one would hire me," she said simply. "I don't look good on paper." Despite the stunned silence, Marcus was grinning. That's because paper can't measure vision. Later that afternoon, as the team huddled in, the executive boardroom reviewing the final candidates. Tension crackled in the air. "She's completely untested," one senior developer argued. "We're taking a massive risk." "She has no management experience," another added. "No exposure to large-scale infrastructure." "What happens when we scale up?" Marcus listened. Then he stood. "I've seen what happens when we hire." "The same kind of mind over and over," he said. "We build predictable systems, safe systems, but we're not in the business of safe. We're in the business of what's next." The vote was close, but Marcus made the call. Juno was hired. The news swept through Trivanta like wildfire. Within hours, Slack channels lit up with speculation. Some called it inspiring. Others thought it was reckless. A few whispered that Marcus had lost his edge. Juno, meanwhile, showed up for her first day wearing mismatched sneakers and carrying a binder filled with sketches and handwritten notes. She was assigned a small team, 3 engineers and 1 skeptical project manager named Tariq. On day 1, she asked them to throw out all their current architecture plans. Tariq pushed back. "We have deadlines." Juno nodded. "So let's not waste time doing it the wrong way." For the first few weeks, her approach seemed chaotic. She encouraged debates in meetings, wrote code that looked more like poetry than syntax, and insisted on spending time talking with the company's UX testers, customer service staff, and even janitors wanting to understand how people felt about systems, not just how they used them. And yet, slowly, something started to shift. Her prototype lightweight empathy engine, she nicknamed Pulse, began outperforming the more traditional systems in both user interaction and error reduction. It didn't just interpret commands, it read user hesitation, frustration, and even boredom, adapting tone, speed, and interaction methods accordingly. By month 3, even Tariq admitted she might be onto something. She sees the space between the code, he said, in a team meeting. She notices things we've all been trained to overlook. 6 months in, Trivanta's AI division unveiled its new flagship project, Pulsicor. It was unlike anything the industry had seen. Emotionally adaptive software that adjusted in real time to the behavior of the user. Clients were stunned. Industry publications ran glowing headlines. Stock prices surged, and in the middle of it all was Juno, the unlikely candidate, who had once been dismissed as a wild card. Marcus Hale received over 24 apology emails from executives who had originally voted against her hire, but he didn't need them. He just smiled, knowing he had made the right call, because sometimes the best minds don't follow paths. They make them. Let me know if you'd like a follow-up chapter, a visual thumbnail prompt, or a version tailored for video storytelling or voiceover script. Absolutely. Here's a 1,000-word story titled The Unexpected Success, based on your outline. It continues naturally from the tone and events of The Unlikely Candidate, but also works as a standalone story if needed. The Unexpected Success. The first few weeks after Juno Ellis joined Trivanta Solutions were anything but smooth. Though the CEO, Marcus Hale, had personally backed her unconventional hire, much of the leadership team remained quietly skeptical. She didn't fit the mold: no corporate background, no formal training, and an unorthodox mindset that clashed with the company's structured culture. Many believed Marcus had made a mistake. Juno worked from a cluttered corner of the AI division's open floor, while others presented tidy flowcharts and stuck to tested protocols. She filled whiteboards with abstract diagrams, half-formed questions, and even philosophical quotes. She insisted on one-on-one interviews with end users. She requested access to customer complaints and transcripts from failed chatbot interactions. She's wasting time. Some said behind closed doors. She's all ideas, no results. Others muttered Tariq. Her assigned project manager voiced what many were thinking. We needed someone to build a scalable infrastructure, not a poet trying to talk to machines. But Marcus didn't waver. She's not here to fit in, he reminded them. She's here to break the gridlock. Still, the doubts were hard. Too ignorant till the first results rolled in. Juno's prototype system, Pulse, wasn't just functioning, it was outperforming expectations. Her design used adaptive neural mapping to shift user interactions in real time based on emotional indicators like hesitation, urgency, or confusion. What traditional AIs had missed, Juno's system picked up intuitively. It slowed down when users struggled, reworded instructions for clarity, and even modulated tone in spoken responses to appear more calming or encouraging. Internally, staff began noticing improvements in the help desk: fewer complaints, fewer escalations. One client called the system eerily human. Another called it the first AI that feels like it's paying attention. Juno didn't bask in the praise. She barely acknowledged it. Instead, she kept refining. When the data scientists questioned her methods, she invited them to user testing sessions. When developers questioned her code, she explained her logic line by line with clarity and grace. Over time, even the most skeptical engineers admitted she had something they didn't: a way of seeing the system as a person, not just as a machine. The real breakthrough came at the end of Q2. A client in the healthcare sector had been struggling with patient compliance. Their existing AI-driven app reminded users to take medications, schedule appointments, and log symptoms. But patients ignored the reminders. Some even deleted the app altogether. Trivanta sent Juno. Within 2 weeks, she redesigned the interaction model entirely. Instead of robotic reminders, she introduced context-aware conversation flows. The AI would check in gently, ask open-ended questions, respond empathetically, and build a relationship over time. It even remembered users' preferences for tone and timing. Within 2 months of deployment, patient engagement jumped by 47%. That success opened the floodgates. Suddenly, companies in education, finance, and retail were requesting Juno's input. Trivanta's AI division, once cautious and conservative, became a magnet for forward-thinking innovation. Revenues soared. Client acquisition doubled. Publications hailed Trivanta's software as the first truly emotionally intelligent AI on the market. Internally, the mood shifted. Tariq, once her biggest critic, now defended her fiercely in executive meetings. She's not breaking the rules, he said. She's rewriting them. The team that once side-eyed her messy workstation now left her sticky notes with ideas. Engineers began adopting some of her principles: more user-focused testing, more adaptive design. Even the rigid onboarding process was updated to include modules based on her work. And Marcus Hale. He just watched it all unfold with quiet satisfaction. He often recalled the day he'd stumbled upon her TEDx talk. How raw but honest her message had been. Machines shouldn't just know us, she had said. They should respect us. It was that very philosophy that had reshaped Trivanta's trajectory by the end of the year. Trivanta Solutions had climbed to the top of industry rankings. For innovation in AI, they were invited to keynote at global tech conferences. Their client retention rate reached 98%. And investors were lining up with offers to expand the AI division internationally. But for Juno, Success wasn't defined by numbers or applause. One night, long after most of the office had gone home, Marcus found her alone, writing in a notebook by the window. "We just signed a deal with a billion-dollar fintech firm," he said with a smile. "You changed this company." Juno looked up, half surprised. "I didn't mean to change the company," she said. "I just wanted to make systems that cared." Marcus nodded. "And in doing that, you helped a company learn how to care, too." She smiled softly, then turned back to her notebook. The journey that began with doubt and resistance had become a testament to vision, trust, and unconventional genius. Juno Ellis, once seen as a risky hire, had become Trevonta's most valuable asset, not because she fit the mold, but because she refused to. She reminded them that innovation isn't always found in spreadsheets or code libraries. Sometimes it walks in wearing mismatched sneakers and asks the questions no one else dares to ask. Let me know if you'd like a follow-up chapter, cinematic voiceover version, or a video description thumbnail idea based on this story. Absolutely. Here's a 1,000-word story titled The Reveal, completing the arc with a powerful twist. This chapter unpacks the CEO's hidden strategy and reinforces the deeper message of recognizing talent beyond the resume. Asterisk, asterisk. The reveal, asterisk, asterisk months had passed since Juno Ellis turned Trevonta Solutions upside down with her unorthodox methods and groundbreaking ideas. What started as a controversial hire had become the company's defining advantage. But behind closed doors, some still wondered how such an unconventional choice had ever made it. Through the filters of one of the most elite tech firms in the world, the answer came during the annual company summit. Every year, Trevonta gathered its top minds in a private off-site event, part celebration, part strategy session, and part motivational recharge. This year, the ballroom at the Summit Center was buzzing with anticipation. For the first time ever, the event was being live-streamed internally across all offices. From Palo Alto to Berlin, on stage, under warm lights and behind a sleek podium, stood CEO Marcus Hale. His voice had always been calm and deliberate, but today, there was something different about him. He looked amused, almost conspiratorial. "You've all seen the numbers," he began, gesturing to the screens behind him, flashing charts of soaring growth and glowing press headlines. "You've all seen what we've achieved in the last year. But today, I want to tell you something you haven't seen." The crowd hushed. Marcus took a step forward, scanning the room. Then, without warning, he smiled. "Some of you may remember when we hired Juno Ellis." A ripple of laughter and murmurs swept through the audience. "I remember the backlash," he continued. "I remember the emails, the late-night Slack messages, the emergency meetings where people told me I was out of my mind." More chuckles. Even Juno, sitting in the front row, shifted uncomfortably. Marcus raised his hand. "And maybe, at the time, you were right. On paper, she shouldn't have even made it past our filters. No degree, no corporate history. Just a few oddball projects, and a brain full of wild ideas." He paused, letting the moment breathe. "But what none of you knew was that it was all part of a test." Now the room was silent. I wanted to challenge how we think about talent. So I worked with our talent design team to run an experiment. We crafted a position with requirements that looked impossible, then we quietly spread the job post outside our usual networks. No, we didn't publicize it. We didn't advertise it. We waited to see who might stumble across it and still have the courage to apply. Marcus let that sink in. Juno found it. And not only did she apply, she challenged the very way we phrased our technical problem during her interview. He turned to look at her now. She blinked, stunned. "You didn't know?" he asked. Gently, she shook her head slowly, the pieces clicking into place. "The truth is, this role was never about traditional qualifications. It was designed to measure something we rarely test: adaptability, resilience, and originality. We disguised it as a leadership position in a new AI division, but it was actually a filter for problem-solving under uncertainty. Marcus's tone shifted now, growing more reflective. In our industry, it's easy to find people who know how to follow blueprints, but building the future, it takes people who know what to do when the blueprint doesn't exist. He stepped away from the podium and began walking slowly across the stage. Juno was faced with resistance, ambiguity, and a culture that didn't immediately welcome her ideas. And every time, she adapted. Not by changing herself, but by changing the environment around her. That's not luck. That's not accident. That's talent, the kind that can't be captured by a GPA or measured by an IQ score. The screen behind him flickered to a quote, asterisk, true intelligence is the ability to navigate the unknown with grace. Asterisk, Marcus faced the crowd again. I didn't just want to hire a new architect. I wanted to test our own system to see if we, as a company, could recognize value when it came in an unfamiliar form. And honestly, many of us failed that test, myself included. I almost pulled the plug after the first round of feedback. He looked directly at his executives now, but thankfully, she didn't give up. And in doing so, she helped us grow not just as a company, but as thinkers. The crowd applauded. It wasn't just polite anymore, it was personal. Marcus returned to the podium, speaking now not just as a CEO, but as a mentor. There are thousands of brilliant minds out there who've never set foot in a conference room, who don't have LinkedIn endorsements, or who solve problems while washing dishes or fixing old cars. We've been trained to look past them. That ends now. He turned to Juno. You didn't just pass the test, you rewrote it. She stood, slightly overwhelmed, and the room erupted into a standing ovation. Tariq clapped the loudest later that evening. As the summit wound down and people drifted to quiet conversations over wine, Juno found herself beside Marcus in the lobby. You played me, she said with a smile. Marcus laughed. A little, but I had to see how you'd react. You impressed me before the first interview even started. She nodded slowly, still processing. And what if no one had passed the test? Then we would have tried again, he said. Because the risk of sticking with what's safe is far greater than the risk of looking for something new. They stood in silence for a moment, watching the night unfold through the lobby's glass walls. Finally, Marcus added, you reminded us that greatness doesn't always look like we expect it to. Sometimes it's hidden behind mismatched shoes and half-sketched ideas on coffee-stained notebooks. But when you find it's worth everything, let me know if you'd like this adapted into a cinematic video script, a short, inspirational reel, or turned into a narrated monologue. Certainly. Here's a 1,000-word story titled The Lesson, written as a powerful conclusion to the arc. It stands on its own, or can serve as the final part in a series, focusing on the broader takeaway: how one unconventional hire revealed a deeper truth about talent, innovation, and the future of work. The lesson: the boardroom at Travanta Solutions had seen its share of strategic plans, million-dollar decisions, and high-stakes meetings. But never before had it served as the stage for something so quietly profound. CEO Marcus Hale stood before his leadership team, arms crossed, looking not at charts or forecasts, but at a single photo projected on the wall behind him. It showed Juno Ellis in the middle of a brainstorming session, whiteboard marker in hand, surrounded by a group of engineers. Her sneakers were untied, her sleeves were rolled up, and her eyes were lit with a kind of focus that couldn't be faked. This, Marcus said, is what talent looks like. There was silence in the room. He let the moment linger before speaking again. We've spent years refining our hiring process. We filter by GPA, work history, universities, references, performance scores, and still the person who transformed our AI. Division was someone who didn't meet a single one of our traditional criteria. He turned to face the team. Why? The question hung in the air. Then he answered it, because resumes don't capture potential. They capture past performance in structured environments. But the world we're building doesn't reward rule followers, rewards those who know how to adapt when the rules don't apply. Juno had proved that in spades. She didn't enter Trivanta through a referral or a polished pitch deck. She entered as an outsider, misjudged, underestimated, and doubted. And yet, she brought something no one else had: vision without baggage. She hadn't been taught what couldn't be done. She only asked, why not? That simple mindset shift was what allowed her to redesign systems that had remained stagnant for years. She saw the overlooked pain points, listened where others explained, and asked questions others were too proud to ask. And in doing so, she taught Trivanta a lesson it could never unlearn. Across the company, departments began to change. HR quietly removed the required degree line from dozens of job descriptions. Teams began holding reverse interviews, where candidates could ask anything they wanted about how the company thought, not just how it operated. Diversity was no longer a checkbox, it became a competitive advantage. From neurodiverse coders to ex-artists turned UX designers, Trivanta opened its doors to thinkers from all walks of life, and the results were undeniable. Innovation accelerated. Turnover dropped. Engagement skyrocketed. Teams stopped replicating ideas and started inventing them. Marcus saw it happen in real time. One by one, the quiet voices, the ones who once hesitated to speak because they didn't fit the mold, began stepping forward with ideas that sparked change. And it all traced back to a single hire. A gamble that turned into the company's greatest gain. But Marcus didn't share this to celebrate Juno. Alone, he shared it to challenge a mindset. In a world that's changing faster than ever, he said, adaptability is more important than experience. Fresh eyes see what trained ones often overlook. And those who've had to navigate unconventional paths bring skills no resume can reflect: resilience, creativity, empathy, grit. He paused and looked around the room, locking eyes with his senior leaders. How many people have we overlooked because they didn't look like what we expected? No one answered. They didn't need to, because the truth was clear. They'd built a brilliant company by filtering for predictability and nearly missed the spark that pushed them forward. Now, Trivanta wasn't alone in this revelation. Industry leaders began calling. Other CEOs wanted to understand what had changed. They expected Marcus to talk about AI breakthroughs, tech strategy, or cloud architecture. Instead, he talked about people. He told them about Juno, about the gamble, about the lesson. Some listened politely, others took notes. A few dismissed it, but the smart ones paid attention, because in every field, technology, education, medicine, business, the same truth was emerging. The problems of tomorrow won't be solved by the credentials of yesterday. They'll be solved by people who think differently, who've learned from failure, questioned norms, and navigated uncertainty. People like Juno, and maybe people like the ones sitting silently on the other side of overlooked job applications right now. That was the real message. The lesson wasn't just about one person's success, was about what her story revealed. That when we limit our hiring vision to what's familiar, we blind ourselves to possibility. But when we open the door to the unexpected, we let in the kind of brilliance that reshapes entire industries. Marcus ended the meeting with a simple ask. Start looking not for the perfect candidate, but for the right one. The one who sees what we can't yet see. And across every office of Trivanta Solutions, something shifted. Interviews became conversations, not interrogations. Experience was weighed with curiosity, and unconventional became the new standard for extraordinary. Juno never asked for credit. She didn't care for titles or awards. She just kept showing up, thinking differently, asking questions, and quietly proving that genius doesn't need permission. In time, Travanta became known not just for its technology, but for its people. And it all started with a lesson, one they would never forget. Let me know if you'd like this adapted into a speech, video voiceover, or inspirational reel script. I can also combine the full story arc into one continuous narrative if you plan to post or present it.